The tears of Israeli and Palestinian mothers and fathers both matter. The Palestinian people, like the Israeli people, should have the right to raise their children in peace and prosperity. Israeli and Palestinian mothers and fathers should know that their children can live free from being killed. We must affirm the right of Israel to exist. We must affirm the right of the Jewish people to have a sovereign state. And we must also affirm the right of the Palestinian people to live in a place where their children are safe and their families are secure. A place where their hospitals and schools are not compromised by Hamas commingling military facilities with hospitals and schools. If America is to be that shining light in the darkness, it must shine for Israeli and Palestinians alike. America must not abandon its calling to protect the children of the Holocaust that resulted in the extermination of 6 million Jews in Nazi Germany. And we can never forget. We must remember why the modern state of Israel was created in the aftermath of World War II. We must remain vigilant in our support of Israel and its right to defend itself. The obligation to the Jewish community and the Israeli people does not disavow us from having an obligation to the Palestinian people as well. We must make a commitment to rebuild a better world for the Palestinian people to live in. We must make sure that we bring about a future in which food flows plentifully into the land of Palestinian people, and that hospitals, housing, and schools are rebuilt. We must make sure that children in Gaza, the West Bank, Tel Aviv, Jerusalem, Israeli and Palestinian alike, don't wake up in a world in which they feel hate and are inspired to war, but feel love and therefore desire peace. As President John F. Kennedy once said, "We do not do these things because they are easy, but because they are hard." I understand the challenges of pulling people with decades, even centuries of animosity together. I am a Black man in America, the descendant of both enslaved Africans and displaced Native American Nanticoke people, whose land was forcibly taken. The United States of America, like many countries around the world, was not created at a time when it lived out the true meaning of its creed, that all people were created equal. However, we as a nation have worked towards fulfilling those ideals, and we have more work to do. We must apply those principles throughout our nation, and we must not go backward. We must not allow the animosity abroad to be an excuse to give sanction to bigotry here in the U.S. The shooting of 3 Palestinian students in Burlington, Vermont, was wrong, and it was a hate crime. We cannot tolerate that in the U.S., just as the shooting of Jewish worshipers in my own state of Pennsylvania was wrong and an atrocity. Just as the shooting of Black Christian worshipers in South Carolina was wrong and horrific. Just as the shootings and gun violence that occur every day in communities throughout America is wrong. I've held my wife after our loved one died in a mass shooting. I've spoken to family members who have had their children murdered. And I've spoken to more children's funerals than I care to remember. I understand how pain causes people to fall into despair, but we must not give in to despair. We must all do our part to make things better. I have heard many Christian pastors say that the Lord helps him who helps himself. I've often heard my friend and our governor, Josh Shapiro, recount the Jewish text that says, "None of us are required to complete the task, but neither are we allowed to refrain from it." It means we must all do our part. The Quran states that for God to change the condition of a people, they must first be willing to change themselves. We must all do our part to change our narrative. It is not about helping the Israeli people or the Palestinian people. We must do both. We do this not because it is easy, but because it is hard. We do this because it is right. May God watch over all of us in our journey.